Another day and another example program to look at. So which one are we going to have a look at now? Well, I thought we'd have a look at Typewriter. So if we have a look at this, it's not a very long program. It's 81 lines and a lot of that is white space. The first thing you see, I don't know who wrote this, but they didn't really believe in commenting. So as I was going through this, trying to figure out what it was that this thing did, I managed to comment it a bit more extensively. So we now have two versions. So in the past what we did was we put it up in big letters in styled edit, and I made the first version, first revision red and the second revision blue, etc., etc. But we're all big boys now, so we must be able to see the difference between two files. And there's a way to do that even in Terminal with a program called diff, D-I-F-F. But that's not very easy to read. So there are a lot of front ends for it. There's a KDE front end, there's a GTK front end. But on this channel, we give preference to native apps wherever possible. So let's have a look at Part1 diff. Don't ask me who thought of that name. Right, so on the left we'll put the old file, and on the right we'll put my new version. And you can see with the different colors, it will show you where changes have been made. Now, of course, this only works if the files still have some sort of relationship. You know, you can't just put in two completely different files, but these are still close enough to each other. Now, Part1 diff doesn't know about Yab. All it knows is about text files. So this will work with any other language that you might be working in. Okay, so we start off here by opening a window with one view. Just the one view. And the window's called main, and in the tab you will see typewriter. So this is a typewriter simulation of sorts. In other words, you can only type one letter at a time. There's no cut and paste, there's no search, none of that stuff. And the point of this demonstration application is to show you how to work with letters, with text outside of an edit box. Because we're not going to get one. Right, maybe I should just show you what it looks like when it's done. Right, there it is. And as you can see at the left bottom, it'll show you where on the screen it is and what size it is. If I start typing on this now, okay, so there's no word wrap here. If I want to open up a new line, then I must hit enter. And this is white text on green, remember that. So very simple, there's not even a way to save this file. It's just a demo, but we'll talk about that later. Okay, so here's some housekeeping. Then we create a view, which is called type. That's the green bit here. Right, then we set up a few variables. Old X, old Y. Right, so those are the initial dimensions, the initial coordinates X and Y, and the initial dimensions. It's a 500 by 300 window, because this thing can be resized. Offset X and offset Y. So offset X is how far from the edge here do you want to start typing. And offset Y, how far down do you want to start typing. Okay, then we set the colors. You got your high color, which is white text, and then they've set both the low color and the background color to medium green. I don't think both of those are actually necessary here. I did experiment a little bit with that, and I think we only need high color and BG color. But okay, it's not right. And then we print the dimensions in the bottom left corner. Draw text, and then this is where you start, and that is this bit here. Okay, and that doesn't get its own view, it goes straight onto the main window. All right, then we start with the main loop. Right, while not in string messages quit requested. You remember messages is a reserved variable for any message that comes into the app. And so the only way to quit this is with this, this little widget here in the tab. There's no quit on the menu here. Can't press escape to quit, only there. Well, of course, you can always force quit it around here, but let's not worry about that. So what else happens in this main loop? Just one thing. It checks whether the window has been resized or moved. And if it has, then it calls update, which is at the bottom here. Now, this one here looks very similar to what we've done up there, right? So one of the things we'll look into in the future is seeing if we can't get rid of this line and just call that. Right, what else have we got? Okay, so if X or Y or the width or the height has changed, then, you know, call that update routine. Again, I'm not 100% sure that this... yes. Okay. You're only flushing the main window, right. Okay. So, before we go back to the beginning of the main loop, there's one more thing. Type key. And right. Options. Okay, this was already commented out by the original author. So, we now go to the subroutine type key, which is over here. This could also have been included in the main loop, but it doesn't really make much of a difference. Okay, and we pass the name of the view to it. Okay, which will then get the string variable view string here. Okay, we get a few local variables, both strings. Right, then we get keyboard message view. Okay, that's very interesting. I never worked with keyboard message. We'll have to see what that does. Yeah, let's see if we can find that in the... I would have used in string again, but let's see, where would that be? Not there. Not there. Graphical user interface, inputs and messages, that sounds about right. There we go. Check the keyboard for pressed buttons. Okay, this is one of the fairly rare instances in Yab where a keyword is actually two words. Okay, so it sits there. It says, is there a pressed button on the keyboard? If there isn't, because case string here is empty, then, and there's a commented out sleep 1,000 of a second. So that tells you that this was developed on a much, much slower machine than we're working on today. The thing must be quite old. But even there, it wasn't in the end really necessary. So basically you do nothing, and then you say else, right, if this keystroke is Enter, and there's a nice little mnemonic for that. Then, right, what does this mean? So then move 12 pixels down and go back to the beginning of the line. Else, if the length of keystroke is 1, right, so that will mean that you're only going to get simple alphanumeric characters in there, right? It will ignore Control, Alt, Shift, or function keys, right? So you only want simple letters. Right, then draw text, right, to these values and move 10. So you print the letter and then you moved your printing position 10 pixels to the right. And then we close this if then, and we close the other one. Right, so now we feed this variable into that one. And while these two are the same, we sit there and we wait for the next keystroke. Okay. Right, then where does this is an infinite loop until you hit a key. Right, then we end this loop here, this if-then loop, all the way from there, and return to the main loop. And that is a basic typewriter. So by the time you see this, the original and all my versions will be up on the Git repository. So you can just refresh that on your local cache and see what I've been doing. And just study this. It actually is much simpler than it looks at first. There's a lot of variables here and a lot of, plus this, plus that. It looks more complicated than it really is. It really only does 3 things. It checks if we should quit the program, and if then, right, if quit requested is, then it jumps out of the main loop and it ends up here. And there's a single exit. Good programming, single exit point. Right. Then it checks if either the position or the dimensions of the window have changed. Now, let's have a look here. Okay, there's a minimum here. 100, 100. Right, so I cannot change it to less than that. Can't make it any smaller than that. I have noticed, however, that if I try to make it too big, it sometimes seems to jump back. We just move this here. Now why would it do that? Because I'm trying to move it underneath the actual screen dimensions. Okay. So that is something we'll have to look into. Okay, so you've seen how this works, and you can have a look at the code. I hope my comments have made it a bit clearer for you. So what can we do with this? Well, first of all, this is supposed to be a typewriter. I don't know if you've been around typewriters. They were almost even before my time. But let me tell you something. Typewriters are noisy. I want to hear that clackety, 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 clack. Right, so we need to get some sound in here. Then, okay, we see how we can put text on a view that's not an edit box. But real typewriters did have, especially the electric ones, they had a backspace. So I would like to be able to backspace. Now in a real typewriter you had this little tape and then you backspaced and you type the keys again. Okay, we're not going to go that far, but yeah, I want to program in a backspace key and undo, at least the last letter. And that should be possible. And then finally, in a real typewriter, what you end up with is a piece of paper with letters on it. And yeah, so I would like to save what I'm typing into a file. Now we'll make it easy. This will be a single file, and whatever you type gets added to it. So you don't have to open a new file, etc., etc. And I would like to be able to open that file into another program, another text editor, so that I can then take that data, clean it up, cut and paste it into other programs. So this typewriter program should be almost like a sticky note. It'll always start with a clean page, but it gets added to that file. Okay, what else? I don't like white on green. I think it should be more like black or very dark gray on off-white. But of course, I know some people are addicted to night mode, so we should be able to reverse that as well. So, in the next couple of episodes, lessons, call them what you will, that is what we're going to do with this. Let's see how far we get. And see if we can completely destroy this perfectly innocent little program. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.